We must collect the index before we can activate the installation. I am a genius.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Halo. So, we have just met 343 Guilty Spark, that blue guy there, and he's transported us somewhere, and we have learned that this is the Flood. So, with that being said, let's get on with it. He's gonna just blabber on throughout this level, and he'll fill us in on some backstory. But we need to follow him through this complex. This is the dreaded, infamous library. In other words, it is that level. Yes, that one level in Halo that everybody knows and everyone dreads and hates, otherwise known as the Halo Psychological Stability Litmus Test. Testing to see if you can survive the sheer onslaught of Flood that comes at you.
We are near the index chamber.
So we need to retrieve the index from this place, and it is that green thing we saw in the opening cutscene. And essentially we just spend this whole mission just basically doom-slaying, being the Doomslayer here, and just fighting off waves and waves and waves of Flood. Nothing much to it, except they just come at you en masse throughout several points in the level. There we go, shotgun. Normally I stick with a shotgun and a pistol combo, but I'm just going to try it with a shotgun assault rifle combo this time.
The energy field above us contains the index. We must get up there.
Yes, we must get up there. Luckily, this version of the game includes subtitles, because previously when you originally play this, the game does not have subtitles, so it's sometimes difficult to, pay attention to what he's talking about while he prattles on, because, you're busy just shooting everything that comes at you. Yeah, we get a good look at one of the Marine combat forms there, or what was left of a Marine. So he's just floating up there, just humming. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, there's one up there shooting me, and it's really bloody annoying. Thankfully, the shotgun is surprisingly accurate.
I will go access the override to open it.
Okay, well, be snappy about it, please. We are under attack here.
Please follow closely. This portal is the first.
Great, so we essentially have 10 of these doors to get through. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Flood in this level, because it's not. He talks a bit about the theory of the Flood, if you will.
Such ineffective weapons to combat the Flood, despite the containment protocols.
So we'll learn a little bit more about what Halo is actually for, what it does. But among other things, it functions as a Flood containment facility. So basically, the Flood are like. They're essentially a disease that spreads and mutates with incredible efficiency, and not only that, it basically acts like this horrific cancer.
The Flood must not escape the installation. They consume all. You can see how the body's been transformed by the genetic restructuring of the Flood infection. The small creatures carry spores that cause a host to mutate. The mutated host then produces spores that can pass the Flood to others. It is insidious and deadly. I wonder
Alright, so what he just said there, you know, is they originally spread via spores. Now, those little round guys that come at you are actually called infection forms. The spores themselves are literally just like a fungus, like a spore that you inhale. And if you were to inhale that, then it would start mutating you from the inside. And it basically acts like an extremely malignant, aggressive cancer, like times 1,000, essentially. So you inhale these spores, and eventually your body gets mutated until you start producing more spores and spreading it more and more. And eventually enough biomass is accumulated to where they start growing those little infection pods, those little things that, you know, pop. And what those things do to continue the spread of the infection and to infect other life forms for the Flood is basically body horror. So we kind of saw in the previous level where one of those latched onto a Marine, but those infection forms, again, those little yikes, being clobbered here. Those little green ones, they latch onto you and they have little tendrils, and like the ones coming at me right now, their little tendrils bury into your chest all the way down to until they reach your spinal column. And essentially they take over your nervous system and your body. Now, there's a couple theories about what happens next, but either they essentially seize control of you to the point where they rapidly mutate you, and to the point where either you might be conscious until essentially you're brain dead.
We must continue. This installation's research facilities are most impressive. Perhaps we'll have time to see them later.
But the other theory is that you are conscious throughout this entire process as it takes over your body. And it is horrifically painful. You mutate into one of the larger combat forms, the ones that are attacking us, you know, the Marines and the elites, or what's left of the Marines and the elites. And essentially those are heavily mutated former elites and Marines, or humans, infected by the infection forms. And their body is grown grotesque and filled with other spores and pus, and you know, their neck is broken, and basically you feel your bones break, your skin tearing, and it mutates you into that. And then you die. Or maybe you don't. So that's what those little guys do. They turn you into the big ones. Now these giant things like that, like what just exploded in front of me, those are known as carrier forms, and basically if a certain form is not well adapted to be mutated into a combat form, then it can become one of these, the carrier forms. And basically, you know, it swells you up.
These sentinels will supplement your combat system. But I suggest you upgrade to at least a Class 12 combat skill. Your current model movement stands as a Class 2, which is ill-suited for this kind of work. Pardon me. A plasma conduit breach in Section 5524 has disrupted power flow to a gravitic...
Okay, yeah. Lovely. Anyway, so yeah, you swell up to this giant spore-filled, pus-filled sack, like the ones that explode. And when you explode, you end up releasing more infection forms to further spread the Flood. So you can see it's essentially like a nasty virus. Or I can't remember, it's like a kind of fungus. I think the one that the disease in The Last of Us was modeled after, which is a real thing, which is kind of frightening, but yeah. So that's a quick and dirty rundown of the Flood. And basically, as long as there's a Flood spore in existence, then there's a threat. So Halo, one of the uses of the Halo was to function as a containment facility to study the Flood.
Flood activity has caused a failure in a drone control subsystem. I must reset the backup unit. Please continue on. I will rejoin you when I've completed my task.
So Cortana made a brief reference when we plugged her into the control room that this ring was Forerunner. Now, it's never really explained about who the Forerunners are, but I believe in the main Bungie games, before 343 took over development of the Halo franchise, is that the Forerunners were like this ancient race of humanoids. They were not humans. Humans were actually anciently concurrent with the Forerunners. I think what I really need to do is I really need to like just take a lot of notes from Halopedia, or I need to get the Halo Encyclopedia and the Halo Mythos books and all that and read those. And maybe I'll do that, I think, when I start looking at start playing the anniversary editions. So I might do that concurrently, and I might actually play the anniversary editions on like easy, essentially, so that way I'm not focused so much on combat and I can talk more about the lore and the world of Halo, because there's quite a bit to it.
The Sentinels can use their weapons to manage the Flood, only for a short time. Speed is of the essence.
So yeah, like I said before, this playthrough is largely just kind of a trip down nostalgia lane for me. It's how I originally played Halo, and in fact, I want to really preserve that kind of history, like, hey, this is how it originally was. So I'm not spending a ton of time talking about all the lore behind the franchise and going really into depth to things like the weapons and the Flood and the Covenant and, you know, the humans and the UNSC. And one of those guys has a rocket launcher, had a rocket launcher. And let me tell you, I don't think I've ever played this level on Legendary solo. I've always played it on Legendary with co-op, with, you know, a buddy of mine.
Please wait here.
Well, can't you leave me some sentinels to wait? Now, Guilty Spark has made a number of references to, like, you know, different classes of suit, environment suit. Now, Master Chief's Mjolnir armor was never really designed for this, but it basically functions similarly in that it protects him. So, I think presumably the suit of armor, it's a bodysuit as well, but it includes things like air filtration. He can survive in space for some period of time, functions as an exosuit. So, with that regard, Master Chief is protected against, like, inhaling any Flood spores, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think. But, of course, he can still be killed by the Flood. Indeed, the suit was never designed for this kind of enemy, but it still serves a good enough purpose of protecting him. I can't imagine what the Flood would smell like. I can only imagine this rotting, decaying, putrid, just stench every time one of those carrier forms explodes. Of course, one of the big complaints of this particular level was that it's kind of confusing in its layout. And I believe the Anniversary Edition added arrows on the floor to allow you to find your way a bit more easily.
Your environment suit should serve you well when the flood begins to alter the atmosphere. You are a good planner.
So indeed, the flood can spread literally so much that they take over an entire planet, several planets in fact, multiple planets, the entire galaxy if it is allowed to. It alters the atmosphere and basically just creates more and more of itself. Now if enough flood comes together in a large enough biomass, it takes the collective consciousness and the memories and the knowledge of all the life forms that it has accumulated, and it forms what's called a grave mine. And we'll learn more about that in a later Halo game. In Halo 2 more specifically, but particularly Halo 3 as well. So right now the flood at this stage where it's just attacking and trying to consume stuff and accumulate more biomass, as it were, is really, I believe, it's called the feral stage. So it's a very early stage of the flood. It's just looking for more resources, more meat, as it were.
The installation was well conceived. It is surely the only way to end the flood threat.
And again, Guilty Spark is making some references to what the installation is there for. He says, we're here because we need the index, because we need to basically use this installation to stop the flood. Hinting in the fact that it may be some kind of weapon. Ooh, I got dead.
Oh, how Your environment suit should serve you well when the flood begins to alter the atmosphere. You are a good planner.
Yeah, these parts right here are annoying. The flood jump down from high up on both sides of you and come at you from in front and behind and all around and upside down and inside out. And oh dang, I saw that rocket coming right for me. Alright, let's try again. Try again. Again, I'm not too concerned about the little infection forms because they present so little threat, but again, they can overwhelm you. As you can see, any explosion of a carrier form creates a sympathetic detonation of any explosives nearby, including grenades. Yeah, and you do something like that, like, absentmindedly shoot one while it's right in your face, and it blows you up. Yes, I get it. This environment suit will serve us well when the flood begins to alter the atmosphere. We're a very good planner, yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. You just validate my feelings, Guilty Spark. Now, shut up and let me fight these SOBs. Anything over here? Nope. Okay, I got some rocket launchers, there's some health, but I am not going to use rocket launchers.
The installation was well conceived. It is surely the only way to end the flood threat.
I believe in universe, the assault rifle here, it's known as the M5B, if I recall. It actually fires 7.62 NATO, so a pretty hefty round, but yet it doesn't have the greatest effect on the flood. So any sufficiently high velocity round will actually just pass right through it. Because like I said, we've established that they're essentially zombies. They don't feel any pain. They just keep coming at you until you shoot them enough until they start losing enough body parts. So, which would kind of explain the assault rifle's not the most effective. In fact, sniper rifle rounds, which are like 4.2 millimeters or something, those pass right through them. But larger caliber rounds, or rounds that don't have quite so much power, hence like the 8 gauge, I think it's quadruple aught buckshot with the shotgun, are very effective against it, as are the pistol rounds, which are 50 caliber Magnum or something, high explosive. So beefy rounds like pistol rounds, the Magnum rounds, the shotgun buckshot is very effective against the Flood. What's going on with that guy? Get off my elevator. But I don't want to ride the elevator.
I would conjecture that the other species currently on the installation is responsible for releasing the Flood. They seem most persistent in their attempts to access restricted areas.
If you look up in some of those vents that the Flood come out of, you notice this greenish yellow kind of haze that's venting from it. I believe those are actually Flood spores. Or that contains Flood spores anyway. And I think the greenish goop that's like dripping down here and there is more concentrated forms of it, or I don't know. I don't know exactly what the Flood is, what's inside the Flood. I always imagine it's like this goopy green pus or something. Nasty, gross stuff. You wouldn't want to touch it, get it on you or in you. That was a close one. Now, you may be wondering why this level is called the library, you know. I don't see no books in here. What kind of library is this? It is a Forerunner facility, and the Forerunners collected a lot of...
Why, naturally, the Flood is simply too dangerous to release. And their sterilization protocols may again need Of course, samples were kept here after the last catastrophic outbreak for study. It seems that decision made.
It's interesting just, listening to or reading what he has to say, because you can't always hear his voice. But yeah, he just mentioned, of course, that some samples were kept here for study. Anyway, so the Forerunners who built this place, they included a library, and they collected an enormous amount of data on other life forms throughout the galaxy. So this library, although we never see what kind of data and information it holds, it is storing information about other species and life forms throughout the galaxy, because the Forerunners were a galaxy-spanning empire, essentially, a civilization. Of course, the question is, why would they keep the access key to the Halo weapon in a library? So, I don't know. Maybe it serves both functions. It's not only the Library of Congress, of the Forerunner, but it's also a security facility. Hence all these massive blast doors.
That is completely unnecessary. Are you finished yet?
No.
We have much more important business
Well, I
here.
feel like shooting you because your toxic
Please stop
positivity
firing your
just annoys the crap out of me. You're an AI. You may not be at much risk for infection,
The
but
installation was specifically built to study and contain the Flood. Their survival as a race was dependent upon it. I am grateful to see that some of them survived to reproduce.
yep, shut up. Shut up, bro. Don't want to hear about your funny little musings on this. You seem to be admiring the abomination here. It's like, oh, the Flood. Aren't they marvelous? It's like saying, Ed Gein was a good person. A real model of citizenship. Okay, moving on. Amazingly, we survived that. I've always wondered what these little... Some of these, these ramps that lead down don't lead to any kind of tunnel, so I wonder what those are for.
I will deactivate the security lock. Wait here.
Yeah, thanks. Just, seal us in a room with 2 large air vents here, where the Flood can come right at us by the dozens. See those infection forms are eating away at my health there. Health, I need health, there we go. And again, just to reiterate, I am playing this on a controller, which is how I normally play Halo. Because, originally was mostly a console game, so there's that. I mean, I have mapped my controls for mouse and keyboard, but which is, of course, faster in aiming, but I think there's so much muscle memory for me in playing with a controller that that's how I'm just used to playing it. Although I do set the sensitivity for the joysticks very high. I think almost to their highest level.
Please stay close. Time is short.
Oh, look at all those. Alright, I believe this is the last elevator. Alright, 4th floor, tools, guns, keys to super weapons. Surprisingly, this level is technically not that long. It is not even the longest level. Like I said, that's actually the assault on the control room. But it feels long because a lot of the architecture in this level is very repetitive, or just copied and pasted, so to speak, and you're basically just doing the same thing throughout the level over and over and over. So it feels longer than it actually is. And indeed, I think, although a lot of people really hate this level, I think that the assessment of it has softened over time. While I certainly do not enjoy this level personally, it's not really that bad. Because many people have just compared it to Doom, essentially. Like the original Doom, where you're just, corridor crawling and shooting at the enemies that charge at you. And that's really what it is, essentially. There's nothing to it. It just feels very kind of bland in its gameplay, especially since you've been fighting the Covenant for so long, where you have to utilize, tactics and different weapons and strategies for different enemies, whereas with the Flood, you just shoot it as it walks towards you or runs towards you. Well, that, of course, is a general criticism of this Halo game in and of itself, is that it's very strong in the first half, but in the second half it kind of the gameplay starts to feel really repetitive after the Flood are introduced, because you'll fight these throughout the rest of the game.
The Flood are already hard at work repairing your vessel. Its parasitic nature belies the Flood's intelligence.
God dang it. What? Yeah, once he opens that door, another big swarm comes at you.
The Flood are already hard at work repairing your vessel. Its parasitic nature belies the Flood's intelligence.
So yes, he did make reference to the fact that the Flood are a parasite and they have a certain intelligence. So yes, as they absorb entities they do absorb, like I said, the memories and the intelligence of whatever they consume and take over. So obviously they consumed in a lot of humans and a lot of Covenant, and that includes a lot of the knowledge that they have. So eventually they will gain enough to develop its own very high level intelligence. Which of course, you know, explains why they know how to operate certain weapons, and but they can also fly ships and repair vessels and things like that. Okay, well, now that's taken care of. I think there are certain ways, if you continue on, or in various times when he opens these doors, there are ways around to kind of skip sections of this level, I believe. Have more grenades, please.
The energy barrier surrounding the index will deactivate when we reach the ground floor.
So we went all that way just to board another elevator to take us back down to ground floor. All so we can get this little green thingy, huh?
You may now retrieve the index.
Indeed, there are arguments that this level could probably be made a bit shorter. But that's what we came for.
Protocol requires that I take possession of the index for transport. Your organic form renders you vulnerable to infection. The index must not fall into the hands of the Flood before we reach the control room and activate the installation. The Flood is spreading. We must hurry.